Well, to begin with the discussions, first I'll go with Tenzin Sarla. Sir, actually there are a lot of stages in the learning and development stage of our child and the student as well in general, especially in school. Like we have physical development, moral, ethical and linguistic, social, interactive and emotional intelligence. These all are the stages and stages of development and learning, and it's very crucial as a teacher to know, as a parents to know more. So I want to know that why this physical development, how it plays a crucial role in a child's development and in the overall development of a child, and how it inclined to the learning process of a student at school, or what are some of the strategies that you will play as a teacher or parents to bring up this overall development of physical development of a child, and how it affect or bring implication in the learning process of student. So can you tell me in general, sir?
Thank you for the question. Yes. Before talking about the importance and then implications of physical pathway, first let me talk about what is meant by physical pathway. Yes. Physical pathway, it refers to biological development of a child. It also includes like mental development, meaning development of a brain. Then it also talks about coordination, and then it also talks about motor skill development of a child. So I think these developments, it starts with conception of a child, and then once they are born, then it starts gradually developing. And now this is preschool development. So at home, as a parent, what we should know is there is physical development as well as mental development, psychomotor skill developments and all. So in this regards, as a parents, we must know that what are some of the basic nutritions that we must feed our child. And on top of that, it generally become crucial when the child is attaining age of 4 and then above. So once they are attaining age of 4, then this become very crucial development. And then as a parents, we also must ensure that we have some activities at home which actually fosters the needs of development regarding this related with these skills. So, and government also have focus on importance of this development. So in that case, we have ECT centers in our schools. So in ECT centers, we have instructors who are trained to help our children develop their mental as well as their psychomotor skills and cognitive skills. So once they are coming to school, and government has also taken into consideration like they must be fully developed in terms of mental as well as physical. So in that case, government has ensured like our child must attain the age of 6, then only our government is allowing our children to enter the school. And in overall, I think like this social pathway, this physical pathway is foundation to all other pathways that later I think my friends might be talking. So if we have this pathway developed well, then rest will be taken care. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tenzin sir, for your sharing. Now, I'll go with Mr. Rakesh. Sir, there are, as per the psychologist, there are a lot of developmental pathways, like what Tenzin sir has shared about physical development. We have moral or ethical. Then I feel very curious to know what these social interactive factors actually plays in a developmental pathway. And as a teacher, I think what are some of the strategies that you are using at your school so that these sort of pathways, developmental pathways, can be enhanced and it indirectly or directly bring the overall performance of a student?
Thank you, sir, for the questions. There are many different dimensions for developmental pathway. So one is social interactive pathway. To state the meaning of social interactive pathway, it means it is an increasing ability of a child to communicate and interact with different people in different situations. And it is developed over a long period of time, and it depends on social situation and cultural context. To give an example, like to act appropriately in a given situation by a child, and to appreciate differences. And this is very important as a teachers to know. So, and this is important because as a teachers, if you know students' culture and social context, we will be able to relate our everyday lessons with their everyday life. Yes. And this is important so that the child can understand easily and they can internalize the lessons. Some of the strategies that we use are the Kagan structures, in which there are lots of chances for children to interact with each other. And when they interact with each other, they share their ideas, they come up with new ideas, and they learn.
Yes, thank you so much, Rakesh Sarla, for your insightful sharings, which outburst the wisdom and knowledge about the importance of social interactive, one of the developmental pathway in child. So thank you so much for your sharing. Now, the next thing I need to ask Mr. Hishi sir. You know that linguistic is one of the developmental pathway as per the psychological developmental stage and learning process in the child. So, what is your opinion that why that linguistic development is more or less, or it is in fact more important than any other factor or parameters?
Thank you, sir, for the question. Before I respond to sir's question, let me share with the idea of what's a linguistic pathway and its negative impact on the child as an adult. So, if I talk about the linguistic pathway, it refers to a child or individual child's ability to receive a communication and to express themselves. Yes. So that is known as linguistic pathway. And if I talk about the negative impact of if a child poses improper a linguistic development, yes. So what will happen in future? Yes. So these are some of the negative impacts of improper linguistic development. Yes. So the first one, as an adult, they will suffer from disorder like language impairment. That is known as a child is known as the LI, or even as a DLD, which is known as developmental language disorder. And as a student, they'll have a problem in academic difficulties. And as an adult and as a child, they'll have a behavioral and emotional disorder. So these are the negative impacts of improper acquisition of linguistic development. Yes. So if I go with the teacher's role in the development of child's language or linguistic development, before I talk about the teacher's role, as a teacher, we have to keep 3 points in mind. There are 3 points in mind as a teacher or a facilitator to a child. The first one is teacher need to understand how a child acquire knowledge. So that's the first point. And point number two, a teacher have to know or understand the structure of language with which children can acquire the language. Yes. Then the number 3, teacher need to understand how social and the cultural context of a child affects linguistic development of a child. So these are the 3 points. So based on these 3 points, looking at the child's culture and the home background, a teacher have to design a classroom in such a way that all the child gets opportunity to interact with each other, and they can use a technique like a group work, a project work. There's a technique known as parallel talk, self-talk. Yes. So these are some of the techniques where a child can interact with each other, and there will be improvement in their language.
Yes. Let's thank you so much, Ishan sir, for your wonderful sharing. Next developmental pathway is on ethical and moral developmental pathway. So I feel that personally, I feel that it's very important. Now these questions I'll ask to Mr. Tshering sir. So developmental pathway on a basis of ethical and moral, what does it mean actually, sir? And then how this ethical and moral development plays a role in overall development of a child, and especially in grooming of our student as a pure JNH student when they graduate from the universities and all. And as a teacher, what are the strategies, how you can infuse these moral and ethical strategies in your lesson, daily lesson, how you can impart this knowledge and skills to the student, and what are the strategies that you are using in your schools to implement such a developmental pathway.
Lasso, thank you for this question. From the title, the moral and ethical pathway itself give us information. Here, moral ethical pathway directly lead us to understand the moral of our act, wherein not only we get to understand others' activity that they are doing, but we also know how to go about the activity where none of us are being affected. I feel morality is very important on top of any other pathways that we are following in for developing the child. Supposing if we are having a student graduate who is able to perform well in almost all the activities but lacks the morality, then it will totally fail. He acquires a huge amount of money, but if that money is acquired through the unfair means, by corruption or by any other means, at the end not only he or herself is put into the problem, the whole family is dragged into the problem when they are caught. And for that reason, back in the school, as a teacher, we have to program or make sure that those students are morally sound. And now with the infusion of GNH, the life skills, child-friendly school, and many more programs that are coming in to our getting infused into our program would make sure that those are being catered, whereby once a graduate, they are going to be a morally sound graduate, whereby they will be able to do well. And in a classroom, supposing a child is being bullied by everybody for being a meek and docile person, we have to make sure that those students are being guided through, whereby the teachers, whereby the friends respect him as well as he get to learn from his friends. Yes. And this is how we have to go forward with the moral and ethical pathway. This is what I feel of. Thank you.
So, thank you, Tshering sir, for you bestowing us with your wonderful wisdoms about the moral and ethical developmental pathway. Thank you once more. Next questions, I'll go with Mr. Kadhu sir. Kadhu sir, would you like to tell us about the emotional intelligence, what is meant by emotional intelligence, and then how it is important, especially for students and teachers, not only for students and teachers. If the students, when they are in the schools and colleges, if they does not inculcate or infuse the knowledge of emotional intelligence, what is the effect in their long run life? And as a teacher, what are the strategies you are implementing in the schools? How you are infusing? Is there any strategies is there any ways to infuse in your lesson, daily lesson, basically to advocate about the emotional intelligence to our student, so that they will be helpful in a long run?
Thank you for the question, sir.
Yes.
So the emotional pathway, it is very important in not only for the children or for the teachers. Now, when we say emotional intelligence or emotional pathway, it is very important for the student and the teacher to have a good emotional health.
Yes.
The word emotional intelligence or emotion says we need to know our own emotion and the impact it has on our own thoughts and action.
Yes.
Because what we do and what we think is directly related to how we feel.
Yes.
So therefore it is important, and depending upon our emotion, the teachers can be motivating factor or teachers can be demotivating factor for the students in the classroom.
Yes.
A teacher who is not emotionally stable Let us say a teacher who has some problem back at home, if he comes to the class with frustration, and if he tries to shows his frustration to the children, then it will be quite demotivating for the children, and this will directly hamper their academic achievements. On the other hand, a teacher who leaves all his family problems or other problems back when he enters into the classroom and shows a good example through stable emotion will be a motivating factor for the children. And even the research has proven that a person who is emotionally healthy or is emotionally stable performs better in the office or at his workplace. Therefore, it is important. And today what we have in the school is we have mindful training, we have the counseling, where this all things are there in the school to cater to the emotional needs of the children in the school. So therefore, I think the present education system is also taking care of all these pathways, the developmental pathways, and it, as a teacher, as a parent, it is very important that we need to be emotionally stable, meaning we need to know how to manage, and not only managing our own emotion, we must also learn how to respond to the emotion of the other person. If someone is sad or if someone is happy, excited, we should know how to react or respond to the people with different emotions, because we cannot react with the same response to the people with different emotional stages. So therefore, as a teacher and as a parents, it is very important for us to inculcate these things in the children.
We are almost at the end of our session. So thank you all our expert teachers for your wonderful time and sharing. Hope this short discussion will bring some impact to our viewers, especially to our parents and teachers and all others as well, because our children not only they spend in school, but they also spend quite a good amount of time with their parents. So if parents could have also such type of knowledge, I think it will help in grooming their children as well. So from the short discussion that we came to conclusion that these all are the factors which helps in grooming our students, like physical development, ethical and moral, linguistic and social interactive, emotional intelligence. I think these all are the developmental pathways which will, if all these developmental pathways are clubbed together, I think it will bring overall development of a child. So it's a very wonderful talk, and I wish we have same kind of discussion and talk in future as well. So thank you once more. Coach Zambo, and very welcome to our second session of the panel. So last Friday we have with the different teachers, and then today also we have a group of teachers who manage their time to share their opinion and feelings regarding this stage on development and learning. So once more I would like to welcome all the panelists, and then let's hope that we have a wonderful talk. To start from the left, we have Mr. Sidup, then we have Madam Hishoge, then Mr. Hari, then we have only doctor teacher here, Mr. Dr. Orientin, and we have a Bibi Sarla. Now, to start the session, I would like to ask one important question that which I feel is very important in case of education especially, and then as a teachers it's very important to know. So my question goes to Sir Chidubla. Now can you explain me, there is a lot of theories actually in psychology and all talking about the readiness and all. Now can you tell me, can you share us what is meant by readiness, and as a teacher what is your role to develop the readiness especially in the children?
As teachers in the education system, teaching for developing readiness basically means cognitive development, or how cognizant a child is in terms of their learning. developing readiness also means teaching to support development, not waiting the child to be readiness. Teachers, as teachers, we can always focus on the ways how it is the students' existing skills. As teachers, we have to attune to the students' existing skills and the way of learning to develop a new understanding and to provide the tools for the better needs for the next stages. For example, the curriculum, the spiral curriculum in mathematics and science in Bhutanese context in Bhutan, the numerical problems are basically solved by the age of 13 to 14 as per the psychologists. And if a students below 13 to 14 age, if they are asked to solve the numerical problems, they cannot do, because they have to pre-teach, they have to have prior knowledge of the numerical and the numbers. So, therefore, in order to have a better understanding, we as a teacher must teach with showing some concrete objects rather than just abstract representations and like numbers and figures. So, this is how the readiness develop in terms of students' learning. And another most important point that we as a teacher must focus is we must use the students' experience strategically to encourage for the future development. For example, if a student has witnessed a festival in their home and it is a part of experience in their community, and if a teacher asks to write assignment on the festival, that will develop writing skills to foster because of the pre-experience or already availability of their knowledge. So, therefore, it will enhance the students' learning in their life.
Plus, thank you so much, Sidip Sarla, for your sharing. Next, I would like to ask our Madam Pema Chogela about, as a teacher, what is your role in development of psychological pathway to the student, and what is the psychological development and how it is important, especially in learning and then in future as well when they groom up as a true citizen, true GNS citizen of Bhutan. And what is some of the implication and how you will enhance or how you will help as a teacher in the school? Can you share some of your opinion?
Thank you very much for the question, sir. The psychological pathway actually it focuses on the individual's self-awareness and self-esteem, including their feelings, the individual's feelings on a feeling of worth and competence, as well as their sense of identity. So in general, it actually tells us about the one's own knowing about one's own abilities, their strengths and their weaknesses. And then as a teacher, I feel that we play a very important role in a psychological pathway for the students. So for instance, in the class, there are some students, good number of students with a very low self-esteem and then low self-confidence, I would say. They often feel inadequate in the class, thinking that they are worthless compared to others. So those students, they hardly speak in the class, they hardly participate in the class, and then forget about showcasing their abilities in the class. At times they develop some kind of fears to the teachers and then subjects, and ultimately it affects their learning. Similarly, some students, they easily get influenced by others, some social factors. And according to the psychology, it says that those students are the one without strong sense of their own identity. So those students, they mainly face problem in making decisions, as well as they are vulnerable to like unhealthy practices. So in that regard, like I feel like we the teachers has an important role out here. So as a teacher, we should be able to recognize the students, our learners' strengths, weaknesses, as well as their accomplishments, so that we will be able to like provide them with a conducive environment whereby they can make use of their abilities, and so that there will be effective learning taking place.
Yes, thank you, ma'am, for your very concrete and then very wonderful sharing about the psychological development and then role of teachers. As a teachers, what is our roles to, especially to enhance such development in the schools. Thank you. Now, I would like to know from Mr. Bibi, sir, that we have a lot of theories, like one is written by Linguistic theory, which talks about the Jonah of proximal development. Now, as a teacher, I think, can you share some of the ideas how the development of a readiness is, the readiness of child? Can you correlate that zone of proximal development based on this theory? And as a teacher, how you are going to implement it in the classroom setting and also in the school?
Okay, thank you, sir, for the question. I'd like to tell one thing, that there are different developmental theories put forward by the different people, and what basically the developmental theory says is that three things need to be considered when you talk about the developmental readiness of a child in learning. So, first one is physical development, second one is mental intelligence, and third one is social experience. These are the three important things which plays an important role in the readiness of a child to learn a specific concept or the topic. So, that is what it says. And it also says that development in different domains in a particular child occur at different time. It occurs at different time for different children, in other words, meaning that one might be very good at intelligence, good at intelligent part at a lower age, but same thing may not happen with the other child. So, that means different child has a different level of their readiness to learn. So, this has been explained by the Russian as teacher as well as the educational psychologist, what and his name is Badutsky. What he said is that teaching should respond to the children's developmental stage. That is what he says. So, it should respond, and according to him, what he says that learning that takes place in external condition can be internalized, and it can be gradually made into practice as they grow up. That is what he says. And this theory was further analyzed, and it was made as a zone of proximal development. So, and basically that zone of proximal development, the theory says that the basic point which you need to know about zone of proximal development is that the differences between what the child knows and what he or she can do to know about the concept with some assistance. Like for example, child A, he does well in writing homework, let us say mathematical numerical problem, without the assistance of their siblings or the parents, but at the same time the same level student, let us say child B cannot do so well, but he can do well if he or she is guided by, let us say his or her parents or a sibling. So, that is what basically the zone of proximal development talks about. So, just to summarize what that zone of proximal development is about is the differences between what they can do on their own and what they can do okay, with the assistance of somebody else. That's what it basically talks about.
Yes, thank you so much, B.V. Sarla. So, zone of proximal development, as Sir said, it's basically talking about the children learning about themselves more without the assistant, how much they can learn without the assistant or with the help of mentor and so on, and then what is their improvement in presence of the mentor or teachers. So, thank you so much. And the other question I want to know is from Hari Sarla. Now, we have talked lots and lots about the development, psychological development or zone of proximal development. Now, as a teacher, can you share me your feelings about when can you say that our school is developmentally appropriate? When can we say that our school is developmentally appropriate school? When can we say that our school, the system as a whole, the student, the teachers, is developmentally appropriate, and then we call that school as a developmentally appropriate school? Can you share me some of your opinion?
Okay, thank you so much for your question, sir. Yeah, developmentally appropriate school. Actually, it refers to school which reflects the whole child, acknowledging the children in which the children will develop differently in the different field. And this is assisted with the help of the teachers. This is assisted with the help of the teachers. And in developmentally appropriate schools, school and home environment fit the child's need. And as a result, academic achievement, mental health, and identity of the child will develop optimally, whereby children will learn better. But if the school and home environment doesn't fit the child's need, then he or she will face difficulty in coping with the situation. Moreover, developmentally appropriate school also understand that students learn through social interaction as well as individual effort. Thus, they are collaborative. In such schools, students are given increasing opportunities to make decisions and to act responsibly within the school and community. And if this type of schools are there, if the schools cater the need of the students, suffice the need of students, then this sort of schools are known as developmentally appropriate schools. Thank you, sir.
Les, thank you so much for your sharing of wisdom about the developmentally appropriate schools. It's a very thoughtful sharing, and then hope that in the Buddhist context we have such type of system, and then which will help in the overall development of childs and teachers and co-relation, collaborative working, and then so on. There will be a green types of green school, where the environment and then learning situation or environment and actually influence the children's learning. So thank you so much. And finally, I have questions to Dr. Yantinla. You have recently published your book, Supporting Learning as Children Grow. So everybody used to say that it's very insightful, a very wonderful book. So today is a very good opportunity that if you could highlight some of your opinion and then some of your wisdom that as an educationist or as a teachers, how can these influence children's learning as they grow. So if you share some of the wisdom, I think since this panel is watching by whole nation, and of course 9,000 plus teachers, one or other way they will know your wisdoms and then try to implement, which will bring the overall development of learning strategies more or less. So
thank you very much for your generous word. In fact, it is the product of my 5 years study, and I'm glad that now our audiences are receiving it well. So to answer your question, I think it's very important for every educationist to understand the developmental stages of a child, so as to impart a task which can be understood by a child and which can be assimilated by a child meaningfully. If I'm to give an example, it is pointless to expect a 9-year-old girl to read a novel and understand everything. And equally again, it's pointless to think that a 7-year-old child can make a moral judgment, because they are beyond their zone of proximal development, as mentioned by Bibisa and as my panel member here, they did mention it in the earlier talk. So how do we do it? So the question is, how do we do it? So the key is in knowing their developmental stages and linking it with their prior experience or prior knowledge. Now how do we bring it to the classroom situation? Let me give it aside an example. If you are a teacher teaching a science concept, maybe a hydropower, talking about the turbine, talking about the dam. So to teach this concept to a child who doesn't have experience of it, or who doesn't have seen it at all in his or her life, is very challenging. So now how can we blend it? So the better pedagogical approach would be like taking them for a field trip and then giving them the first-hand experience of how turbine looks like and how the dams are constructed. So these are some of the means that we can make the child to comprehend and learn better. And another example can be when the child at the age of, it is said that at the age of 8 to 12, they are imitating the adults. So they love imitating the adults. So in this region or in this range of age, what we can do is we can teach the concept of occupational concepts, like the work of doctor, a work of teacher, a work of physician. So what they do. So if we teach them through the role play, then they can better assimilate the concepts there. So in a way, to summarize, now to have the meaningful teaching and learning session, knowing a child's cognitive level and knowing its proximal zone. Now here, when we say the proximal zone, it means like what child knows and what child is capable of knowing through guiding, not through guidance, as mentioned by Bibisa. So that thing should be always in the back of the mind of a teacher whenever a teacher delivers a lesson in a classroom. In this way, I think we can have the meaningful classroom sessions and fruitfully, hopefully, our child learns better in their way.
Thank you so much, Dr. La, for your wonderful sharing, basically about the children's learning as they grow. So in fact, it's a very wonderful talk. Thank you so much for all the panelists for your wonderful time. So we have a very good discussion and sharing of knowledge on the stages on development and learning. Hope this will help all the viewers and especially teachers. So I wish we have such type of talk in future as well. So thank you once more. Lasso, Kadinche.